Yeah.
There's a frigging blizzard, and we're doing this to stop global warming. Does the governor have an EV?
I hate that my job involves me having to cover Jesse Waters, but here we are. So this was the day before the fires escalated in LA. This was the day before being climate change deniers on Fox News. Climate change isn't real, but it's destroying the planet, and Los Angeles is on fire, but it's really not climate change, and how dare we try to do something about it, even though it's burning down most of Los Angeles. But you know what we can blame this on? You know how we can angle this? It's DEI. That's the problem.
And now you have no water in the fire hydrants, and people are using garden hoses. I saw a guy pouring milk onto his fire. It's so unacceptable, and it's DEI, and it's also corruption. The last 3 people that ran this utility in LA, one was a DEI hire, First Native American. She was fired because she was such an idiot. Bass fired her. The other was caught taking bribes. He's in prison. And then the other one lost $40 million. So while all these people are focused on pronouns and fish you can't eat and, scrubbing white people from the fire department, they can't even focus on water and fire and human life.
God, you hire one black lesbian and suddenly white people and straight people no longer exist. Where did they go? You have one person go, oh, actually, I prefer they, them pronouns, and oh my God, my pronouns are USA. Listen, corruption exists, and it exists on both sides. And it has nothing to do with hiring a black person or a gay person to do a job. It has nothing to do with English grammar. They're not related. And you're right, corruption should be taken out, which is why you should probably be taken out of business, Jesse Waters. It's not global warming. It's black lesbians. How dare they exist and get jobs and work for income so they can pay their bills like the rest of us. As a lesbian, I can confirm that this is part of the gay agenda. We wanted to infiltrate fire departments. Listen, if I don't turn it into a joke and a bit, it's just scary and sad. The world is literally burning. Our world is literally burning, and we have people denying climate change on national television. And lots of people are listening and drinking the Kool-Aid. And I have examples that I'm going to mention in just a minute from across the globe that I guarantee you haven't heard of because our mainstream media sucks so hard and is so bad.
But to Greg and Jesse's points about, this is because of DEI or what we need is practical solutions, there is so much bad information swirling around about the main players involved in this, like the fire chief who's been called a DEI hire. I take her resume any day. 24-year vet, paramedic, engineer, fire inspector, captain, battalion chief, fire marshal, deputy chief. I don't know.
But you're proving my point.
No, I'm not proving your point.
Yes, you are. You're proving it because DEI makes everybody suspect. That is the problem. And you guys paraded it around. So now you put it in people's heads.
No, you put it in people's heads.
How? I can back DEI.
My girl Jessica coming in, calling it out for what it is. You see how DEI can literally eradicate any argument for how qualified that person. If the more qualified that person is, the more you're proving my point. See, she's been DE hired all over the place. Like, no, she's just qualified to do her job. No, you're putting it into people's heads. No, you're putting it in people's. No one thought about DEI until you mentioned it. You had to search for it and be like, oh, by the way, the fire chief trying to handle this is a black lesbian, DEI hire, bad at her job. No one was thinking that. You put it in people's heads. She was just a person who happened to be black and happened to be gay, and she was qualified for her job. Guess what? There are more of them. There are lesbians that exist in all kinds of jobs, and they're not DEI hires. You just happen to exist, and you have to have a job, and you end up in lots of different places because it doesn't matter. Yes, there have always been natural disasters. Yes, there have always been fires, but climate change is making it worse. That is a scientific fact. The hotter we get, and extreme heat waves are 5 times more likely these days than they were 150 years ago, the more the land dries out. Those two in combination equal more fires, harder fires to put out. And the more forest fires happen, the more carbon they emit, which leads to more global warming. And it's an awful cycle that keeps perpetuating itself. And we are actively making that cycle worse and speeding it up. We have been experiencing the horrible destruction of these massive LA wildfires. But did you know that we affect with our behavior, and by we, I mean massive corporations, mostly operating out of the US, pumping oil into the ocean and garbage into the atmosphere, that we're affecting the entire planet? The whole planet is being affected by this, not just the US. Did you know that this past summer, South America and Africa were both majorly on fire? Here is NASA's fire map showing the fires this summer. As I live out west in the United States, I remember there being lots of fires out here. It was way worse in South America, and it was way worse in Africa. This was this summer. 6% of Angela burned in a week. This is my job. I work in news, and I didn't know about this until last month. What, 6 months later? I heard that Africa was literally on fire. Look at that map. But that is acknowledging larger effects, global effects of climate change. And they're not being covered because they acknowledge massive trends in climate change. And big businesses who are polluting the crap out of our earth don't want this stuff in the news, because then something might have to be done about it. And who cares if the world is burning when the top 0.01% of humanity wants to increase their record profits? According to the Atmosphere Monitoring Service, 2024 experienced historic, not record, historic carbon emissions for the summer fire season in 2024. And the smartest thing that the political far right ever did was convince its base not to trust science. Because science has all the answers, science has all the facts that they don't want you to know, because they don't want to have to do something about it, because they want to keep burning the world to make profit. That's the very simple answer. This is a massive global issue, and the places in South America and in Africa that were absolutely decimated by these fires are going to have an unbelievably hard time recovering, and you didn't even hear about it. They were devastated. They were way worse than the LA fires that we just had and are still dealing with. And you didn't even hear about it. That should tell you something. They are burning your planet for profit, and they've convinced you that it's cool because it's owning the libs or whatever. Guess what? You live here too. It's your planet too. We all live on the same planet. And when it becomes unbearably hot or unbearably cold, or when your house is destroyed by a hurricane or another tornado or a wildfire that we can't control because there's just so many of them and they're burning so hot now, I guess that'll own the libs too.